"Mom said lonely people need friends," said the little boy to the CEO on the plane on Christmas Eve, December 24th. The Chicago airport was a blur of people and blinking lights, echoing with flight delays and tired footsteps. Outside, snow fell thick and heavy, blanketing the runway in silence, while inside, announcements crackled through the intercom, and travelers clutched their boarding passes with red noses and weary eyes. Rachel Evans tightened her grip on the strap of her old, scuffed duffel bag and shifted her weight, balancing her 3-year-old son Lucas on one hip. Her long, pale blonde hair was tied back in a messy ponytail, a few strands falling loose over her face. Her coat was thin for this weather, her boots were worn, but her smile, tired as it was, never left her lips. "Almost there, sweetheart," she whispered into Lucas's ear as they finally reached Gate 27. Lucas nodded sleepily, his cheek pressed to her shoulder. "Is Grandma's tree big this year?" Rachel smiled. "The biggest yet." They were supposed to be seated in the economy cabin, row 29, but a mix-up at the gate and overbooking led to a last-minute surprise. A flight attendant approached with a polite smile and a clipboard. "Miss Evans, there's been a change. We've made some adjustments due to seating issues. We can move you and your son to 2 open seats in business class." Rachel blinked. "Business class?" "Yes, ma'am. Merry Christmas." Rachel followed, stunned, still clutching Lucas's hand. As they entered the warmer, quieter business cabin, she noticed how different everything felt, like stepping into another world. Noah Cole sat near the window in seat 3A, a half-full glass of red wine cradled in his hand. He looked polished in a charcoal suit, his dark hair neatly styled, a touch of gray at his temples. AirPods sat loosely in his ears, though no music played. His eyes, empty and far away, were fixed on the snow swirling outside the small oval window. He did not look up when Rachel and Lucas took their seats next to him. Rachel settled Lucas into his seat, apologizing softly as she adjusted his belt. The little boy clutched his stuffed penguin tightly and looked curiously at the man beside them. Noah remained motionless, staring into the void. He did not see the warmth of Christmas in the airport lights. He saw his mother's face, faded by time, her soft humming from a Christmas long gone. She used to love this season. Since her death, he had avoided it, buried himself in work, drowned out the carols with late meetings and cold wine. Success was supposed to fill the silence. It never did. Lucas stared at him, his little brow furrowed. After a few minutes, he tugged on his mother's sleeve. "Mom," he whispered, "why is he sad?" Rachel glanced at Noah, startled. "Maybe he just misses someone," she said gently, brushing Lucas's hair back from his forehead. Lucas nodded thoughtfully. Then, without warning, he unbuckled his seatbelt, clambered onto his knees, and leaned over the armrest toward Noah. Before Rachel could stop him, Lucas reached out and touched the man's arm. "Hi, mister," he said in his small, clear voice. "You look lonely," Mom said. "Lonely people need friends. I can be your friend." Noah blinked, slowly turning his head. For a second he just stared at the child, at the impossibly round eyes, wide and blue, full of innocence and something else, understanding. No one had looked at him like that in a long time. Not as a CEO, not as a man with a past, just as a person. He opened his mouth, but no words came. A lump rose in his throat. Rachel hurriedly pulled Lucas back, her face flushing with embarrassment. "I'm so sorry," she murmured. "He's just—" Noah raised a hand gently, stopping her. "It's okay," he said, his voice soft, the edges cracked. Then, with the faintest trace of a smile, he looked at Lucas and added, "Maybe I do need a friend tonight." Lucas beamed. Rachel looked at Noah, really looked at him, and for the first time since she had boarded the plane, she realized she was sitting beside someone who, despite having everything, might be more alone than anyone she had ever met. And for the first time in a long while, Noah felt something stir in his chest, like the first hint of warmth after a long, cold winter. The plane hummed softly as it climbed into the night sky. the world below disappearing into a sea of clouds. Cabin lights dimmed, casting a warm golden glow over the quiet rows of business class. Outside the window, snowflakes danced across the glass, carried by unseen winds. Noah sat still, his hands resting loosely on his lap. Next to him, Lucas leaned against his seat, still watching the man with curious eyes. After a moment of silence, Lucas piped up, his voice small but clear in the hush of the cabin. "Mister, do you have a mommy?" Noah turned slowly, caught off guard by the question. His gaze met the child's wide-eyed innocence. "I used to," he said after a pause. "She passed away a long time ago." Lucas nodded solemnly, as if he understood something far too big for his age. Then he asked, "Do you get toys on Christmas?" Noah blinked, the corners of his mouth twitching in the faintest hint of amusement. "Not anymore," Rachel chuckled softly, clearly embarrassed. "I'm so sorry. He's always like that. He sees feelings more than most grown-ups do." Noah glanced at her. Her voice was gentle, a bit worn, but warm. He found himself more intrigued than annoyed. "No need to apologize," he said. "It's refreshing." Lucas reached into a small bag Rachel had tucked under the seat and pulled out a plastic container. "Do you want one?" he asked, holding it out. Inside were slightly squished Christmas cookies, tree shapes, stars, and snowmen, with uneven green and red icing. "My mommy made them." Noah looked at the offering for a moment, then slowly took a cookie. "Thank you." Rachel smiled. "It's our tradition. Every year, we bake together before we fly to see Grandma." Noah took a bite. It was soft, sugary, with a hint of cinnamon. Not perfect, but undeniably made with love. He turned to Rachel. "How old is he?" "3. Almost 4. His name is Lucas." Noah nodded. "He's something special." Rachel looked at her son, who was now nibbling his own cookie with sticky fingers and humming quietly. "He keeps me going," she said. "I'm a single mom. I work part-time at a coffee shop and take online classes when I can. I saved all year just to make this trip. Christmas is important to him." Noah watched her closely. There was no bitterness in her voice, only quiet strength. She continued, "He's never met his dad, but I tell him he's still got a full heart." Noah said nothing at first. He looked down at the half-eaten cookie in his hand, then back at Lucas, who smiled up at him without a care in the world. Then, out of nowhere, he asked, "Do you believe in miracles?" Rachel tilted her head. "Sometimes. I think a miracle is just something that shows up when you're close to giving up. Like Lucas. I thought I had nothing left, but then he came along." Noah stared at her, his features softer now. His voice dropped to a near whisper. "My mother died when I was 9. My father, he never knew how to love. No hugs, no holidays, just rules." Rachel's eyes didn't waver. "I fell in love once. College. I thought she was the one. But she left when I lost my first job. Told me I had no future. So I worked. I built everything from nothing. And I kept building, thinking maybe if I was successful enough, the loneliness would go away." He looked away, jaw tight, but it didn't. Rachel didn't try to fill the silence. She just listened, her hands folded in her lap. A small hand reached out again. Lucas grabbed Noah's fingers and squeezed them. "You can come to Grandma's house," he said, grinning. "We have cookies and hugs." Noah looked down at the little fingers wrapped around his own, and for the first time in years, he did not pull away. The cabin had grown quieter. Most of the passengers in business class had reclined their seats, retreating into blankets and quiet dreams. The hum of the plane was steady and soft, almost like a lullaby. Rachel's eyes had grown heavier with each passing mile. She had tried to stay awake, to keep Lucas entertained, but exhaustion had finally caught up with her. Her head tilted slightly, her ponytail slipping loose, and she drifted off. Lucas, still clutching his stuffed penguin, had curled up next to her, his little legs draped over her lap. Noah glanced sideways. Mother and son, both asleep. He watched for a long moment. Rachel's face, relaxed now in sleep, looked younger, still tired, but peaceful. Her hand rested protectively on Lucas's back even as she dozed. There was something profoundly human about the picture, something that tugged at a place deep inside Noah that he rarely let himself feel. Quietly, he stood and opened the overhead bin. He pulled down a thin airline blanket and gently draped it over them both, smoothing it carefully so Lucas's tiny feet were covered. Then he retrieved a warm, rolled towel offered to first-class passengers and placed it behind Rachel's lower back, adjusting it to support her better. She stirred slightly but did not wake. Noah sat back in his seat, stealing another glance at the two. He didn't know why he had done all of that. It had just felt right. When Rachel woke a little while later, the first thing she noticed was the warmth, then the pillow behind her. She looked down and saw the blanket, tucked in so gently over Lucas. She sat up slowly, rubbing her eyes. She looked at Noah. "You did this?" she asked, her voice still heavy with sleep. He smiled faintly. "You look tired. I figured you could use a break." Rachel blinked, unsure what to say. She hadn't expected that kind of gentleness. Not from a man like him. Not here, not now. She whispered, "Thank you." Noah nodded once. "You're welcome." Lucas stirred, then sat up with a yawn, rubbing his eyes. "Are we there yet?" "Almost," Rachel said, smoothing his hair. The boy sat up straighter, reached into the seat pocket in front of him, and pulled out a small notepad and a red crayon. He began drawing with great concentration. Rachel leaned over. "What are you making?" "A Christmas picture," Lucas replied matter-of-factly. Noah watched, curious, as Lucas drew a small Christmas tree with big, scribbled ornaments. Then, 3 figures, one tall woman with yellow hair, one small boy, and another man, slightly taller, in a suit. When he finished, he turned the pad around and proudly showed it to Noah. "This is you," he said, pointing to the 3rd figure. Noah stared at the picture. "Why me?" Lucas shrugged. "Because you were sad, but now you smile. You can be in our family." Noah's throat tightened. He tried to speak but found he couldn't. The drawing was childish, messy, a burst of red and green crayon strokes, but it was the most honest gift he had received in years. Rachel smiled, her cheeks flushing slightly. "He says what he feels." Noah looked at her then, really looked. The way she smiled at her son, the way her eyes softened when she saw someone hurting, the way she had survived so much without bitterness. Something shifted inside him. He looked back at Lucas's picture, and for the first time in a long, long while, Noah Cole wished the flight would never end. The plane touched down with a soft jolt, wheels kissing the snowy runway. Outside, the world was still blanketed in white, but now it was morning. Soft light filtered through the windows, pale and cold. Noah stood up first, retrieving the bag from the overhead bin with practiced ease. Rachel was slower, still sleepy-eyed as she helped Lucas, who clung to his stuffed penguin and looked around curiously. "Let me," Noah said quietly, reaching for Rachel's bag without waiting for her to ask. Rachel nodded, too tired to argue. When they stepped off the plane and entered the gate area, the contrast was jarring. Noise rushed in, voices, rolling luggage, holiday announcements, the smell of cinnamon pretzels and coffee hung in the air. Travelers rushed past with arms full of gift bags and tired children, but for a moment, Noah felt like time had slowed. Just ahead, an older woman stood near the arrivals area, bundled in a long gray coat, holding a homemade sign that read, "Welcome home, Rachel and Lucas." Her silver hair curled at her shoulders. Her eyes were kind, lined with years and warmth. "Grandma!" Lucas yelled, running toward her. Rachel let out a small breath and smiled. "There she is." The woman knelt just in time to catch Lucas in her arms. She laughed, kissed his cheek, and held him like it was the first time in years. Rachel followed, suitcase in hand. Noah hung back a step, watching it all. It was such a simple scene, nothing extraordinary, but it pierced something inside him. Family. It looked like warmth, like a fireplace crackling in the background, like something he had never really had, not like this. Rachel turned back toward him. She walked the few steps that now felt strangely long. Her voice was softer now, hesitant. "Thank you. For everything on the flight. For being kind to Lucas. For being there." Noah gave a faint nod. He made it hard not to be. Rachel smiled, but it did not reach all the way to her eyes. For a second, the air felt full of things unsaid. She began, then paused. Her fingers curled around the handle of her suitcase. "If you're not in a rush, my grandma's house is not far. We're just having a quiet dinner tonight. Nothing fancy." She looked up at him, hopeful but unsure. Noah opened his mouth, then closed it again. He looked at Lucas, still nestled in his grandmother's arms, babbling about cookies and snow, then back at Rachel. Something pulled at him, deep, quiet, unfamiliar. A longing, but years of habit, of isolation, of telling himself he was fine alone, were not so easy to shed. He smiled gently, but his voice was distant. "That's kind of you. But I should probably get going." Rachel nodded, but disappointment flickered across her face, just for a moment. Lucas ran up, arms wide. He hugged Noah's leg tightly. "Don't be lonely anymore, okay?" Noah froze. His hand came down slowly, resting on the boy's shoulder. "I'll try," he said softly. Rachel watched the exchange, her throat tight. She wanted to say something more, something that would make him stay, but she stayed silent. Noah stepped back. He gave Rachel a small nod, then turned toward the exit. As he walked away, the sounds of the airport seemed to swallow him whole. But he did not put his AirPods in. He did not pull out his phone. He just walked, hands in his pockets, eyes down, carrying with him the weight of something he had never expected to find, and maybe was not ready to lose. Morning broke gently over the small town, its rooftops buried in snow and trees dusted in white. The air was still, save for the distant laughter of children playing and the muffled crunch of boots along the sidewalk. It was Christmas morning. Noah sat on a bench near the frozen lake in the town's center, bundled in his coat, scarf loose around his neck. His breath clouded the air. He watched as kids skated on the ice, their joy rising in bursts. Parents stood nearby with thermoses of cocoa and cheeks reddened from the cold. He was not sure why he had stayed. Last night, after leaving the airport, he had every intention of heading to his reserved hotel room in the next city, but instead, he had checked into a small local inn with creaky floors and flannel sheets. Something about the warmth of Rachel's voice, Lucas's hug, had followed him. Now here he was, watching life unfold without him. He adjusted his gloves and looked down at his phone. No messages, no calls. The silence, once his armor, now gnawed at him. A child's shout broke through. "Mom, it's the sad mister. He's here." Noah looked up. Across the snow-covered path, Lucas was waving wildly, bundled in a red coat, his cheeks pink with cold. Beside him, Rachel and her grandmother walked slowly, holding paper bags of groceries and wrapped loaves of bread. Rachel's eyes widened as she recognized Noah. She blinked as if trying to be sure he was real. He stood, brushing snow from his coat, his expression unreadable but undeniably awkward. Rachel approached, tucking her hair behind one ear. She offered a tentative smile. "Didn't expect to see you again so soon." Noah shrugged lightly. "I wasn't planning to be seen. I guess I wasn't ready to say goodbye." Lucas ran forward and grabbed his hand. "You look cold. You can come to our house. Grandma makes hot cocoa." Noah glanced at the boy's small fingers wrapped around his. He hesitated. Rachel looked up at him, searching his eyes. She said nothing more. A few seconds passed. Then, for the first time in years, Noah did something completely unplanned. He nodded. "Yeah, cocoa sounds nice." They walked together down the snowy lane, their footsteps leaving 3 new trails beside the others. Noah's heart beat faster, unfamiliar with the feeling rising in his chest. Not nerves, not regret, hope. He was not sure what would happen next. But for the first time in a long while, he wanted to find out. The moment Noah stepped into the house, a wave of warmth wrapped around him, not just from the heater humming softly in the corner, but from something deeper. The scent of cinnamon, cloves, and fresh-baked cookies lingered in the air, mixing with the faint crackle of a small fireplace tucked beneath the mantel. The living room was modest, but every corner spoke of care. Handmade stockings hung crookedly above the fire. A small Christmas tree stood proudly in the corner, its branches covered in paper stars, popsicle stick ornaments, and clumsily strung popcorn garlands. Most of them bore the unmistakable touch of a child's hands. Noah paused, eyes fixed on the tree. It was far from perfect, but it was real, personal, alive with love. "That's Lucas's tree," Rachel said quietly, setting her bag down by the door. "We decorate it every year. He insists on using the same paper angel for the top, even though it's falling apart." Noah's lips curved into the softest smile. "It's beautiful." They gathered around the table, just the four of them. The meal was simple: roast chicken, mashed potatoes, steamed carrots, and warm apple cider in mismatched mugs. No place cards, no pretense, just folded napkins and the sound of laughter echoing off the kitchen walls. Noah found himself laughing more than he expected. Lucas told silly knock-knock jokes between bites. Rachel teased him gently about his messy face. The old woman, Rachel's grandmother, chimed in with stories of Rachel's childhood, how she once tried to build a snowman inside the living room. Midway through the meal, Noah set down his fork and looked around the table. His voice was quiet, but steady. "I've been to 100 fancy dinners," he said. "None of them felt like this." The others fell silent. For a moment, no one moved. Rachel's grandmother leaned forward slightly, eyes narrowing in curiosity. "You said your last name is Cole, right?" Noah nodded. "Yes, Noah Cole. My mother's name was Margaret." The fork slipped from the woman's hand and clattered onto her plate. Her eyes welled instantly. "Margaret Jennings." Noah blinked. "Yes. That was her maiden name." "You knew her?" A hand rose to the woman's mouth. She nodded, tears filling her eyes. "Oh dear. She was my best friend when we were girls. We grew up 2 streets apart. I lost touch with her after she moved away. We used to write letters, but one day, they just stopped." Rachel gasped softly, covering her mouth. "You knew his mom?" Her grandmother nodded again, voice trembling. "We spent every Christmas together until we were 16. We would bake cookies, play carols on the old piano." She reached for Noah's hand. "I never thought I'd see a part of her again. But here you are." The room fell still. Noah sat frozen, 1,000 emotions surging through him. Grief, gratitude, wonder. He looked down at the mug in his hands, then gripped it tighter as a single tear slipped down his cheek. "I didn't know she had someone like you," he whispered. "Thank you for remembering her." Rachel reached over and gently placed her hand on his. After dinner, without a word, Noah began helping clear the table. He rolled up his sleeves, rinsed the dishes, and stood beside Rachel's grandmother at the sink, drying one plate at a time. His movements were gentle, patient. "Let me do this," he said softly. "You've done enough tonight." He found a throw blanket on the back of the couch and draped it over the old woman's lap as she sat down to rest. He adjusted the pillow behind her back, asked if she needed tea. Rachel stood in the hallway, watching. Hidden from view, she clutched the edge of the doorframe. Her heart stirred. The man in the suit who had once seemed unreachable was now standing barefoot on her kitchen floor, sleeves rolled up, caring for her family like it was second nature. And for the first time, she thought, this man isn't a stranger anymore. The morning light filtered gently through the lace curtains, casting soft golden patterns on the kitchen tiles. Outside, the snowfall had returned, light, steady, and quiet like a whispered lullaby. The world looked peaceful, wrapped in white. Rachel stirred awake earlier than usual. She tied her robe, rubbed her sleepy eyes, and headed to the kitchen to start breakfast. But as she passed by the living room, She stopped in her tracks. Noah was already there. He sat cross-legged on the couch, still in his soft gray sweater from the night before, with Lucas curled up in his lap. A worn comic book lay open across their knees. An old Christmas story Rachel had read countless times as a kid. Noah's voice was low and steady as he read aloud, mimicking the reindeer's voice with surprising enthusiasm. Lucas giggled, pointing at the page. "That's the reindeer. He can fly." Noah laughed. "Like you, kid, flying everywhere, making people smile." From the kitchen doorway, Rachel watched them, her son glowing with joy, and the man beside him, who just days ago had been a stranger on a plane, now holding her child like he had always belonged there. She smiled softly, the kind of smile that bloomed from something quiet but deep. Something was shifting. Later that morning, the house buzzed with energy as they decided to bake gingerbread cookies. Flour covered the countertop. Lucas clapped his hands with excitement, and Rachel rolled out the dough while humming a carol. Noah offered to help, though, within minutes, he accidentally dropped an egg on the floor and got flour in his hair. Rachel burst into laughter, doubling over. Lucas pointed dramatically. "He's making a mess." Noah shrugged, helpless but laughing too. "I was not made for baking." The room was filled with joy, unfiltered, loud, imperfect, and real. It was a stark contrast to the sterile, silent penthouses Noah had spent so many holidays in. He looked around and thought, "So this is what it's supposed to feel like." That afternoon, the joy softened into quiet comfort. Rachel's grandmother, usually cheerful and spry, had started to feel unwell. The cold had settled deep into her knees, and a soft cough had developed. She waved it off like it was nothing, but Noah noticed. Without being asked, he went to the linen closet, pulled out a thicker blanket, gently tucked it over her legs, and propped up a pillow behind her back. Then he moved to the kitchen, made ginger tea with honey, and brought it to her with a quiet, "Let me handle this. You rest." Rachel walked in just in time to witness it. She paused. Noah was kneeling beside her grandmother, speaking gently, eyes kind, movements unhurried. He was not performing. He was just there, fully present. Rachel's chest tightened. She bit her bottom lip, overwhelmed by the care in his touch, the peace in his presence. A man we barely knew, now making tea for my grandmother like he's always been part of this home. That evening, after Lucas had gone to bed, the house grew quiet again. A soft playlist of Christmas piano music played in the background as Rachel brought out a box of old ornaments, some chipped, some handmade, all precious. She and Noah stood beside the small tree, adding the last few decorations. Their hands reached for the same silver bell, their fingers brushed. Neither pulled away. Rachel looked up at him. Noah met her gaze. There was no sudden kiss, no dramatic music swell, just a silence that spoke everything. "I don't know what this is," he said softly, his voice hushed, reverent. "But it feels like I've come home." Rachel didn't answer. She simply smiled, a quiet, knowing smile, and hung the bell beside his hand. For the first time, neither of them felt alone in the room. The morning sun crept softly over the snow-covered town, casting golden light across the icy rooftops. Inside the small house, the air was still, as if holding its breath. Rachel stirred awake, expecting to find the soft thud of little footsteps or the smell of cinnamon from the kitchen. But instead, what caught her attention was silence and the empty chair by the door. Noah's coat was gone. Her chest tightened. She walked into the living room and found only the echo of last night's laughter, the memories of a man who had slipped into their lives like snow through a cracked window, quiet, unexpected, and impossible to ignore. Her grandmother sat in her usual armchair, wrapped in a thick shawl, sipping tea. Rachel's voice was tentative. "Where is he?" The old woman looked up gently. "He went out early. To the lake, I think. That boy, he's carrying a lot in his heart. Maybe he needed space to let it go." Rachel didn't hesitate. She slipped on her coat, pulled on her boots, and stepped out into the morning frost. Down by the frozen lake, Noah sat alone on the same bench where they had crossed paths just the morning before. Snowflakes danced slowly through the air, catching in his dark hair. His gaze was far off, resting on the horizon where the ice met the trees. Rachel approached quietly, not wanting to startle him. She stopped beside him, close enough for their shoulders to almost touch. He didn't look at her right away. "I haven't felt like I belonged anywhere," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Not in years, maybe not ever." A long breath. "But here, with you and Lucas, it's different. You talk to each other like nothing's broken. You laugh like love is normal. I forgot what that felt like." Rachel looked at him, her eyes shining but steady. "You don't have to go back to being lonely." Finally, he turned toward her. The early sun lit her features, her soft blonde hair catching the light, her cheeks pink from the cold, her eyes warm and open. He smiled, a real one, slow and certain. "Are you saying I could stay?" Rachel nodded, her voice thick with quiet emotion. "Only if you want to be part of a real family." Noah didn't answer right away. He reached out and took her hand in his, fingers curling tightly. A promise, not loud, not rushed, just real. 1 year later, the house buzzed with the joy of Christmas morning. The once small tree now stood taller and fuller, draped with twinkling lights and new decorations, some store-bought, most still homemade. Lucas dashed through the living room in his reindeer pajamas, a red felt nose taped to his own. Santa came, Santa came. Noah sat on the couch, glasses low on his nose, reading a letter with a silver-embossed header. It was from his company. The position of CEO had officially transitioned. Below his name now read a new title, Chairman. He smiled and set the letter aside. Footsteps came from the kitchen. Rachel emerged, her golden hair now curled and loose around her shoulders, wearing a red knit sweater and holding a tray of cookies. She caught him watching her and tilted her head. "What?" Noah rose, walked over, and wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin gently on her shoulder. "I used to think success meant being alone at the top," he whispered. "But now, success looks like this." Lucas spotted them and shouted with glee, "Family hug!" He ran toward them, arms wide open. They bent down, pulled him in, and the three of them wrapped into one warm, laughing embrace. Outside the window, the snow continued to fall gently, blanketing the town in quiet peace. Inside the little house, there was laughter, there was love, and there, in that humble room, a new family had formed, not by blood, not by obligation, but by the brave, tender act of choosing one another. If this story touched your heart, reminded you of the power of kindness and the magic of found family, don't forget to subscribe and hit the hype button to support soul-stirring stories. Every week, we bring you emotional tales that warm your heart, inspire your spirit, and remind us all that love can be found in the most unexpected places. Thank you for watching, and remember, sometimes the smallest gestures create the biggest changes. Until next time, stay kind, stay hopeful, and keep believing in miracles.
Thank you for listening to this story until the end. Hopefully every moment, every detail in the story has brought you emotions, thoughts, and maybe a little joy or motivation. Thank you for spending time with us, and hope that the next stories will continue to accompany you and touch your heart.